Welcome to Shadow Frames, where forgotten images reveal their darkest secrets. Tonight we examine a portrait that has recently emerged from the dusty archives of a Victorian photographer's collection, a seemingly innocent baby portrait from 1888 that conceals a disturbing anomaly. The photograph itself appears unremarkable at first glance. Captured on a sepia-toned cabinet card, it shows a cherub-faced infant of perhaps 10 months. Dressed in the elaborate christening gown common to the late Victorian era. The child sits propped against plush velvet cushions, surrounded by the ornate furniture and heavy drapery, typical of photography studios of that period. The baby's expression is serene, with round cheeks and bright eyes gazing somewhat vacantly toward the camera, as was common given the long exposure times required in that era. A delicate lace bonnet frames the infant's face, tied beneath a dimpled chin with a silk ribbon. It was a time when child mortality rates remained devastatingly high, and portrait photography had become increasingly accessible to middle-class families eager to preserve the image of their beloved offspring, sometimes the only memento they would have should illness claim the child in those precarious early years. But there is something profoundly wrong with this particular portrait. Look closer at the baby's mouth. What appears at first to be a typical infant smile reveals itself to be something altogether impossible. Visible through the parted lips are not the expected few milk teeth of a baby this age, but a full set of adult teeth, incisors, canines, and molars, all perfectly formed and unnaturally large for the small mouth that contains them. The effect is immediately unsettling, transforming what should be an image of innocence into something that defies biological possibility. The contrast between the infant's soft features and those mature, fully developed teeth creates a visual discord that strikes deep into our instinctive understanding of what is natural and what is not. Photography in 1888 was still considered somewhat magical by many, a technical process not widely understood by the general public. But even accounting for the various tricks and manipulations available to photographers of the period, the presence of adult teeth in an infant's mouth seems impossible to explain through mere photographic trickery. Was this an elaborate hoax created by a technically skilled photographer with macabre sensibilities? A carefully constructed composite image meant to disturb and unsettle? Or does it represent something far more sinister, evidence of an anomaly that existed in reality, captured forever in silver bromide? The photographer's name has been lost to time, appearing only as a partial, water-damaged imprint on the back of the cabinet card. Inkton and Sons, photographic artists. The identity of the child remains similarly obscure, with no inscription or dedication to provide context. What we do know is that this unsettling portrait has passed through several collections over the decades, each owner reportedly experiencing a profound sense of discomfort in its presence, with some claiming to hear the distant sound of teeth grinding in otherwise empty rooms. The provenance of this disturbing image emerged only recently, when the cabinet card appeared at a specialty auction in Boston among the effects of the late Eliza Thornfield, last descendant of a once prominent New England family. Her journal, dated 1923, contains a troubling entry regarding the photograph's acquisition by her grandfather, Dr. Edmund Thornfield, a physician with unconventional interests in developmental abnormalities. According to Eliza's writings, her grandfather had traveled extensively throughout rural Massachusetts in the late 1880s, documenting what he termed nature's peculiarities in isolated communities, where generations of intermarriage had allegedly produced unusual physical traits. The journal suggests Dr. Thornfield paid a substantial sum to obtain this particular portrait from a family in a remote village near the Berkshire foothills, a settlement that appears on no modern maps. More disturbing still is Dr. Thornfield's clinical notation accompanying the photograph, preserved on a yellowed card in his precise handwriting. Subject exhibits complete dentition at 10 months. Parents report teeth emerged simultaneously over 3 days accompanied by high fever. No pain or distress observed in child following emergence. Family history includes similar occurrences in maternal line dating back 4 generations. The Thornfield papers contain correspondence with several prominent medical journals of the era, all of which rejected the doctor's submission of the case for publication. One editor's response remains attached to the photograph. While we appreciate your scientific enthusiasm, we cannot in good conscience share what is clearly either a fabricated image or the result of some photographic aberration. To suggest such a biological impossibility would damage the credibility of our publication. Victorian medical photography certainly included many deliberate manipulations designed to illustrate theoretical conditions or enhance visible symptoms. However, photographic experts who have examined the original cabinet card note that the image shows no signs of the typical composite techniques used in that period. The grain structure appears continuous throughout, and microscopic examination reveals no evidence of retouching around the infant's mouth. Adding another layer to this mystery is the photographer's logbook, discovered in 2011 during the renovation of a building in western Massachusetts that once housed Pennington and Sons photographic artists. Presumably the complete name of the studio partially visible on the card's verso. The relevant entry simply states, "Portrait of Winter's infant. Mother insistent child not be made to close mouth. Father paid double rate for discretion. No copies made as agreed." Most unsettling of all is the fate of the Winters family, as recorded in local newspaper archives. Barely 3 months after the photograph's creation, their farmhouse burned to the ground during a winter storm. Among the 5 casualties listed was an infant, identified only as the youngest child, aged 1 year. The article notes that recovery of the bodies was complicated by unusual circumstances, but offers no further explanation. Those who have handled the photograph report a curious tactile sensation, a subtle vibration felt through the fingertips, accompanied by an inexplicable metallic taste. Several have described dreams of their own teeth crumbling to dust, only to be replaced by row upon row of new, perfect teeth emerging from tender gums. Modern analysis techniques have revealed further peculiarities about the Winters infant photograph that earlier generations could not detect. Under ultraviolet examination conducted in 2015, conservators at the New England Museum of Photographic History discovered a series of faint handwritten notes along the photograph's margins, visible only under specific light conditions. These notes, presumably made by Dr. Thornfield, reference something called the tooth lineage and mention a feeding cycle that occurs every 27 years. Perhaps most disturbing is the notation that reads, "Child does not consume conventional sustenance. Mother reports exclusive diet of bone meal and minerals. Teeth appear to serve purpose beyond mastication." Further research into local history reveals that the village near the Berkshire foothills where the Winters family resided experienced periodic disappearances of livestock, and occasionally people, dating back to the mid-1800s. These incidents typically clustered around specific years, each 27 years apart, though authorities of the time attributed them to predator animals, harsh winters, or transient criminals. The curator who oversaw the photograph's recent restoration reported an odd phenomenon during the conservation process. Over 3 consecutive nights, the specialized microscope used to examine the cabinet card inexplicably focused on different areas of the image without human intervention. Each morning, staff found the equipment zeroed in on the infant's mouth, despite being shut down and secured the previous evening. Stranger still, microscopic bone fragments were discovered embedded in the original matting around the photograph. Fragments later identified through DNA analysis as belonging to multiple species, including human. How these fragments became incorporated into the mounting material remains unexplainable by conventional means. A genealogical investigation into the Winters family tree reveals another unsettling pattern. While records indicate the entire immediate family perished in the 1888 house fire, birth records from precisely 27 years later show 3 children born in separate communities within 50 miles of the original Winters property. All 3 births were recorded on the same day, and all 3 children bore the middle name Winter, though each had different surnames and ostensibly unrelated parents. Medical records obtained from a sanitarium that operated near Springfield until 1932 mention a patient admitted shortly after birth who presented with complete dentition and whose mother died of exsanguination during delivery. The attending physician noted that the infant's teeth appeared unusually sharp and somehow mobile within the gums, as if they could be retracted at will. The photograph itself seems to resist modern digital reproduction. Attempts to create high-resolution scans produce images where the baby's mouth appears deliberately blurred, regardless of equipment used or resolution settings. In 2 separate instances, the scanning equipment suffered catastrophic mechanical failures immediately following attempted digitization. Most recently, the dental anthropologist who examined detailed images of the visible teeth in the photograph submitted her resignation from the university where she conducted her analysis. Her letter, though largely coherent, contains the troubling assertion that they are not teeth as we understand them, but something older, tools evolved for a purpose we have mercifully forgotten. The case of the Winters infant has attracted attention beyond academic circles in recent months. A doctoral student researching 19th-century dental anomalies disappeared after requesting access to the original cabinet card. Campus security footage shows her entering the special collections room but never leaving, though all exits remained monitored. When authorities searched her apartment, they found her bathroom mirror covered with crude drawings of teeth arranged in concentric circles, and her journal contained repeated entries simply stating, "They're growing inside." Perhaps most concerning is the pattern that emerges when mapping historic incidents connected to the photograph's whereabouts over the past century. Each location where the image resided for more than 3 months experienced an unusual cluster of missing persons cases, always including at least one pregnant woman and one dentist or dental technician. These disappearances cease when the photograph changes hands. The most recent owner before the museum acquisition, an antique dealer from Providence, committed suicide in 2018 after claiming to hear a persistent grinding sound emanating from within his walls. His final communication was a text message to his sister containing only the words, "They're hatching in the spaces between teeth." Dental x-rays performed on the cabinet card using specialized equipment revealed something that defies explanation. Beneath the visible layer of the photograph appears to be an anatomical impossibility captured in silver bromide. What registers on the radiographic plate is not the expected structure of infant dentition, but something more akin to interlocking circular rows of teeth, similar to certain deep-sea creatures, arranged in a spiral pattern extending deep into where the child's throat should be. During a recent power outage at the museum storage facility, security personnel reported hearing what they described as a rhythmic clicking sound, like someone rapidly tapping teeth together, coming from the climate-controlled vault where the photograph is now kept. Upon investigation with flashlights, they discovered nothing unusual, though one guard required treatment for unexplained lacerations on his fingertips after touching the storage cabinet. Most troubling is the recent birth reported at Massachusetts General Hospital, where a newborn arrived with what attending physicians initially assumed was a serious congenital abnormality. A full set of teeth. The mother had no previous knowledge of her pregnancy and claimed to have been visited in dreams by a child with many mouths. Hospital records indicate the infant was transferred to a specialized facility, but inquiries reveal no such transfer occurred, and the mother was found in her hospital room with her jaw apparently dislocated from the inside. The Winters photograph is currently scheduled for display in an upcoming exhibition on Victorian post-mortem photography, based on the curator's new theory that the infant was actually deceased when photographed, and the unusual teeth were an elaborate mortician's preparation. However, 3 separate museum employees assigned to prepare the exhibition text have requested reassignment after reporting the same dream. An infant crawling across a ceiling, its mouth opening wider than anatomically possible to reveal countless teeth arranged in spiraling rows all the way down. The museum's decision to display the Winters photograph has triggered an unexpected chain of events. 2 weeks before the scheduled exhibition opening, 4 separate dental practices within a 10-mile radius of the museum reported bizarre overnight break-ins. Nothing was stolen except patient molds and impression materials. Security footage from one office showed only static interference between the hours of 2 and 4 in the morning, though a maintenance worker reported finding small wet footprints, like those of a crawling infant, leading from the laboratory to an air vent. Meteorologists have noted unusual mineral content and recent rainfall surrounding the museum grounds, with water samples containing elevated levels of calcium phosphate, the primary component of tooth enamel. Local residents report a distinctive metallic taste in municipal water, despite utility company assurances that all testing indicates normal composition. The museum curator responsible for the exhibition has taken an unexpected medical leave after complaining of severe jaw pain. Her personal physician, speaking under condition of anonymity, described discovering secondary teeth developing beneath her existing adult dentition, a physiological impossibility in a 40-year-old woman. More disturbing was his observation that these nascent teeth appeared to be growing not upward from the jawbone, but inward toward her throat. Archives from the original Pennington photographic studio continue to yield unsettling connections. A recently discovered invoice book contains entries for 6 other infant portraits commissioned by families with surnames matching those who experienced disappearances during the 27-year cycles. Each entry is marked with a small symbol resembling a spiral. None of these photographs have ever surfaced in any public or private collection. An elderly resident of Western Massachusetts, now in hospice care, has come forward claiming to be a distant relative of Albert Pennington, the studio's founder. Her testimony suggests the photographer was not merely documenting the Winters infant's condition, but was himself involved in whatever transpired in that remote village. According to family lore, Pennington abandoned his business suddenly in 1889 and was found years later living under an assumed name in a coastal Maine village, where he refused to enter the ocean or eat seafood despite working as a boat repair specialist. Most alarming is the recent finding during renovation work in the museum's basement. Workers uncovered a sealed brick chamber containing hundreds of human teeth arranged in precise geometric patterns on the dirt floor. Carbon dating indicates the teeth originate from at least 7 different time periods, the oldest dating back approximately 3,000 years. The arrangement forms an exact match to the spiral pattern visible in the X-rays of the Winters photograph. The exhibition's opening night gala has been plagued by unusual ticket requests, all from individuals using email addresses containing variations of Winter or Tooth. Guest registration records show 17 separate reservations for Dr. E. Thornfield, despite the museum having no record of extending these invitations. Meanwhile, a team of linguistic anthropologists studying the marginalia on the photograph has identified certain recurring symbols as matching fragments of pre-colonial native pictographs traditionally associated with a ritual to bind entities described as those who consume from within. The museum's board of directors convened an emergency meeting just 48 hours before the exhibition opening. 3 members failed to appear, while a 4th joined via video conference, visibly distressed, repeatedly touching his jaw throughout the proceedings. The remaining board voted 5-3 to proceed with the exhibition, despite mounting concerns. That same evening, the Conservation Laboratory reported an anomalous temperature drop surrounding the Winters photograph. Instruments recorded a localized decrease of 17 degrees Celsius directly around the cabinet card, despite the climate-controlled environment. More troubling were the sounds captured on the laboratory's ambient noise monitors, classified by audio technicians as consistent with the grinding of dental implements against bone. Museum security discovered the laboratory door unlocked the following morning, though access logs showed no entries. The photograph remained in place, but staff noted the distinct odor of calcium hydroxide, a compound commonly used in 19th century tooth preparations, lingering in the air. A local dentist consulted about the exhibition has become the latest individual connected to the Winters photograph to experience unexplained phenomena. Dr. Marjorie Keller reported waking 3 consecutive nights to find her bedsheets dusted with what appears to be dental powder. More disturbing was her discovery of tiny indentations in her pillow that microscopic analysis revealed to be consistent with infant bite patterns, though spaced in anatomically impossible configurations. Further investigation into the Pennington photographic studio has uncovered a previously overlooked connection. Parish records from 1887 show that Albert Pennington's wife gave birth to stillborn triplets exactly 9 months before the Winters photograph was taken. The burial record contains an unusual notation from the attending minister. Interment delayed pending family's private ceremony. Remains subsequently unavailable for Christian burial. No grave markers for the Pennington infants exist in any local cemetery. The museum's chief conservator has documented an inexplicable physical change in the photograph itself. Under magnification, the visible teeth in the infant's mouth appear to have shifted position between examinations, with several observers independently confirming that the canines now protrude approximately 2 millimeters further than in previous documentation. Attempts to verify this through comparison with earlier photographic records prove impossible, as all digital images of the cabinet card taken before this week have become corrupted in storage, showing only a grainy static where the infant's mouth should be. Local law enforcement has increased patrols around the museum following reports from nearby residents of a child's crying emanating from the building during night hours, despite the facility being empty. 2 officers conducting an interior sweep reported their flashlight beams dimming specifically when directed toward the conservation laboratory, and one described experiencing intense pressure on my jaw, as if something were pushing outward against my teeth. Perhaps most concerning is the peculiar geological phenomenon now observed beneath the museum. Ground-penetrating radar, deployed after maintenance workers reported rhythmic tapping coming from within the walls, has revealed an anomalous spiral-shaped cavity extending downward from the foundation, a formation geologists confirm cannot have occurred naturally and does not appear on any prior structural surveys. As dawn breaks on the exhibition's opening day, an unscheduled delivery arrives at the museum's service entrance, a package wrapped in waxed butcher paper, addressed simply to Winter's Child. Security footage shows no courier, only the package materializing in the camera's blind spot. Inside, staff discover a Victorian-era child's rattle carved from what appears to be ivory. Dental forensics later confirm it to be fashioned from human molars, expertly fitted together and mounted on a handle of silver-plated bone. A note accompanying the object, written in faded brown ink on parchment, contains just 4 words. The cycle feeds itself. Museum director Helen Marston has ordered armed guards stationed throughout the exhibition space following a disturbing incident during final preparations. A visiting scholar examining the photograph collapsed, suffering what witnesses described as a seizure-like episode, during which he repeatedly opened and closed his mouth in perfect synchronization with imperceptible movements observed in the infant's image. Upon regaining consciousness, the scholar had no recollection of the episode but complained of severe gingival bleeding, his saliva tinged with black fluid that laboratory analysis identified as containing traces of silver nitrate, a primary component in 19th century photographic development. Advance tickets for the exhibition have sold out entirely, with the curious observation that exactly 27% of purchases were made between 2 and 4 in the morning. Administrative staff report that confirmation emails sent to these nocturnal buyers consistently bounce back with the error message. Recipient domain expired 1889. The museum's telephone system has experienced unexplained malfunctions throughout the day, with callers reporting that their inquiries about the exhibition are answered by what sounds like a child's voice counting numerically in reverse, followed by grinding noises. Technical specialists can find no evidence of system compromise or recording insertions. In a particularly unnerving development, 3 pregnant women working in buildings adjacent to the museum have reported identical symptoms over the past 48 hours. Intense pressure in their abdomens, metallic taste in their mouths, and ultrasound images showing what radiologists have uncomfortably noted as unusually developed maxillofacial structures in their unborn children. The exhibition's guest book, set out for tomorrow's opening, has somehow already accumulated entries. The pages contain row after row of identical signatures reading E. Thornfield, M.D., each written in progressively smaller script as they spiral toward the center of the page. Handwriting analysis indicates the signatures were made with 27 different writing implements, though security confirms no unauthorized access to the area. Most disturbing is tonight's discovery in the staff bathroom nearest the conservation laboratory. All mirrors have been covered with condensation despite the room's controlled humidity, each fogged surface bearing what appears to be the impression of an infant's hands and mouth. When photographed, these impressions reveal not the expected smooth surface of baby skin, but minute ridges that dental anthropologists confirm match the occlusal surfaces of human teeth. As midnight approaches on the eve of the exhibition, museum guards report a sound building throughout the structure, a resonant hum precisely matching the frequency of vibration produced by striking a tuning fork against a healthy molar. The sound grows incrementally louder with each passing minute, as if countless teeth are grinding in anticipation of tomorrow's unveiling. The exhibition opens to unprecedented crowds, yet surveillance footage reveals a troubling discrepancy. 27 more visitors pass through the entrance than tickets collected. Museum staff cannot account for these phantom attendees, though thermal imaging shows cold spots moving methodically through the galleries, converging on the Winter's photograph. By mid-afternoon, visitors report an unexpected phenomenon, the distinct scent of milk emanating from the cabinet card, drawing people inexplicably closer to the display. Those who linger longest before the photograph emerge disoriented, several unconsciously running their tongues over their teeth in identical patterns when interviewed afterward. A peculiar acoustic anomaly manifests within 6 feet of the display. Recording equipment captures what audio specialists term impossible harmonics, that occur only when multiple dental surfaces grind together simultaneously in precise mathematical sequences. These frequencies fall just below normal human hearing, yet trigger autonomous physiological responses, dilated pupils, increased salivation, and minute jaw movements in those exposed. More alarming is the behavior of children brought to the exhibition. Without exception, every child under age 3 becomes fixated on the photograph, attempting to touch the glass while making identical vocalizations described by linguistics experts as phonetically inconsistent with developmental capabilities. 2 toddlers somehow produced identical drawings afterward, concentric circles of crude teeth, though they had no contact with each other. The museum gift shop reports unprecedented sales of dental-related merchandise, vintage toothbrush replicas, anatomical tooth models, and calcium supplements emptied from shelves. Security footage shows these items being purchased primarily by individuals whose faces never fully turn toward the cameras, their movements slightly disjointed as if poorly adjusted to their own bodies. As evening approaches, electrical disturbances intensify throughout the building. Lights flicker specifically when visitors discuss the photograph, and all digital display screens throughout the museum begin showing microscopic cross-sections of tooth enamel, regardless of their programmed content. The museum's antiquated pneumatic tube communication system, inactive for decades, starts delivering empty message cylinders to the exhibition gallery, each one warm to the touch and emitting the faint odor of clove oil, a 19th-century dental analgesic. Local hospitals report 17 cases of individuals experiencing simultaneous dental eruptions, new teeth forcibly emerging in physiologically impossible locations, including the hard palate, tongue, and inside the cheek. Every patient had visited the exhibition earlier that day. At sunset, a striking meteorological event occurs directly above the museum. Cloud formations spiraling in mathematical patterns identical to those found in the teeth arrangements from the basement chamber. Weather radar captures the anomaly, but meteorologists remain baffled, particularly by the precipitation that briefly falls within the spiral's center. Rain with the consistency and opacity of calcium-rich milk. As the museum prepares to close for the evening, a final chilling development, under the specific lighting conditions created by the setting sun, visitors discover that when viewed from precisely 27 degrees off-center, the infant's eyes in the photograph appear to track movement. More disturbing still, the cabinet card now shows minuscule wet spots at the corners of the baby's mouth, moisture verified by touch, though no source can be identified. The night guards draw straws for who will patrol the exhibition gallery overnight. None wish to admit their growing conviction that the infant in the photograph now appears noticeably larger within its frame. Dawn reveals the exhibition gallery in disarray. Display cases stand intact. Security systems show no breaches, yet something fundamental has changed. The protective glass covering the Winters photograph remains unbroken, but bears 27 distinct condensation marks. Perfect miniature bite impressions, arranged in a precise arc. The first morning visitors appear strangely uniform in their behaviors. Museum staff note that every third patron arrives wearing blue or white clothing. All approach the photograph from identical angles, and each spends exactly 4 minutes and 27 seconds before the display, before moving counterclockwise through the gallery. More unsettling is what happens when they speak. Linguistics professor Amelia Foster, documenting visitor reactions for her research on collective responses to disturbing imagery, discovers through audio analysis that gallery conversations contain embedded patterns, certain phonemes occurring at mathematical intervals that, when isolated and played in sequence, produce what distinctly resembles infant babbling punctuated by wet, sucking sounds. "They're communicating through us," Foster whispers to the curator at midday, her hands trembling around her recording device. Whatever is happening here is using human speech as camouflage for something else. She abruptly excuses herself, only to be found 20 minutes later in the women's restroom, methodically extracting her own gold dental filling with trembling fingers. The museum cafe reports an unexpected shortage as visitors consume milk at unprecedented rates. The beverage disappears from carafes even when staff watch directly, liquid seemingly evaporating when momentarily unobserved. Children throughout the museum begin complaining of something pulling on their teeth, many refusing to close their mouths fully. By afternoon, local news crews arrive to document the exhibition's success, but their equipment malfunctions, specifically when aimed at the photograph. Video feeds show only strobing patterns resembling dental X-rays, while audio captures nothing but a high-pitched keening that sound engineers describe as like bone being slowly ground down. The museum director receives an urgent call from Massachusetts General Hospital. All 17 patients with the anomalous dental eruptions have disappeared from their rooms simultaneously. Security footage shows each walking down different corridors that should lead to exits, but instead depicts them turning into maintenance hallways that don't connect to hospital exits. None have been found despite comprehensive searches. As twilight approaches, temperature monitors throughout the gallery begin registering patterns. Cold spots move in coordinated formations, forming invisible corridors that subtly guide visitors into positions that, when viewed from the ceiling cameras, arrange human bodies into the precise shape of an enlarged human molar. Most disturbing is the change noted by the night conservator who arrives to check humidity levels. Under ultraviolet examination, the Winters photograph now shows something impossible. The infant's left hand, previously tucked beside its body, now extends slightly toward the viewer, fingers elongated by precisely 1 centimeter compared to yesterday's documentation. When the final visitors depart, security guards perform their standard walkthrough, but find themselves inexplicably avoiding the exhibition gallery, each independently reporting a powerful instinct not to enter. Those monitoring surveillance feeds watch in horror as the empty gallery's lights flicker, momentarily plunging the space into darkness. When illumination returns, the feed clearly shows a small, wet handprint on the camera lens that wasn't there seconds before. The guards radio their supervisor, voices tight with controlled panic. Something's moving in there, and it's growing teeth. The night stretches endlessly for the museum's skeleton crew. By 3 a.m, all electronic devices in the building begin to malfunction, their screens displaying nothing but static interrupted by fleeting images of infant gums sprouting teeth in time-lapse. The security team's radio communications become increasingly unintelligible, their voices gradually replaced by what sounds like the wet clicking of newborn gums. Custodian Miguel Vasquez, 63 and just months from retirement, becomes separated from his colleagues during a routine check of the lower galleries. His flashlight fails as he passes the staff entrance to the exhibition space. In the darkness, he feels rather than sees movement, a presence low to the ground, moving with the halting rhythm of a creature not yet confident in its locomotion. "Hello?" Miguel calls, his voice echoing. "Is someone there?" The response comes not as words but as a sound no human throat should produce, the distinct grinding of multiple rows of teeth against each other, creating a cascading pattern like dominoes falling in sequence. Miguel backs away, fumbling for the emergency exit. His foot connects with something small and hard that skitters across the floor, what he later describes as warm and wet, like a tooth freshly pulled from living gums. Outside the museum, the city itself seems to respond to whatever grows within the exhibition. 27 blocks in each direction from the building, residents report the same dream, a massive circular mouth descending from above, rows of teeth rotating hypnotically as they close in. Every dreamer wakes tasting milk and copper on their tongue. Dawn brings an unexpected discovery in the museum courtyard, a perfect circle of small bones arranged in a spiral pattern, each one polished to an unnatural whiteness. Wildlife experts confirm they are jaw fragments from various small mammals, none of which are native to the urban environment. At the center lies a single human baby tooth, determined through testing to be approximately 135 years old. Professor Eliza Matheson, the institution's most senior archaeological consultant, arrives unannounced at 9 a.m., her face ashen. Without speaking to anyone, she proceeds directly to the exhibition gallery, moving with the determined gait of someone completing a dreaded obligation. "I should have recognized it sooner," she tells the museum director after emerging 30 minutes later. The pattern in the photograph, the teeth arrangement, the 27-year cycle. "It's all documented in my grandmother's research." From her weathered leather satchel, Matheson produces a bound journal bearing the name Eleanor Thornfield, the same Thornfield family connected to the photograph's provenance. The journal contains detailed sketches of ancient cave paintings found throughout New England, each depicting a circular entity with concentric rings of teeth, described in the margins as the devourer between worlds. "The indigenous peoples knew it required a host," Matheson explains, her finger tracing the faded text. "Always an infant, always during a specific celestial alignment. The mouth serves as both entrance and exit, a doorway through which it partially emerges to feed before returning to whatever exists between realities." Most troubling is Eleanor Thornfield's final entry, dated exactly 27 years after the Winters photograph was taken. It grows stronger with each cycle. The teeth are merely the visible portion of something vast and patient. What we perceive as feeding is merely it learning to taste our world. The full emergence approaches, not in my lifetime, but perhaps 3 or 4 cycles hence. The museum director glances at the calendar on her desk, the date circled in red, exactly 27 years multiplied by 5 since the photograph was taken. The exhibition now extends into its 3rd week, drawing unprecedented crowds despite increasingly disturbing incidents surrounding the museum. Local dental practices report an unusual phenomenon, patients seeking emergency care for what they describe as movement beneath existing teeth, uniformly occurring after visiting the Winters photograph. Dental x-rays reveal nothing abnormal, yet 3 dentists have taken leaves of absence after experiencing what one described as sympathetic psychosis while examining these patients. Museum staff have established a peculiar ritual when entering or exiting the gallery, unconsciously running their tongues over their teeth in a specific pattern: left molars, right canines, front incisors. Those who fail to complete this sequence report immediate discomfort, a pressure building behind their eyes until they comply with the unspoken requirement. Acoustic engineers brought in to investigate the persistent sounds emanating from the exhibition have abandoned their equipment, declaring the frequencies mathematical impossibilities that somehow manipulate bone resonance in the human jaw. Their specialized microphones capture what appears to be multiple overlapping conversations in an unknown language, though nothing is audible to the naked ear. Professor Matheson has not been seen since delivering Eleanor Thornfield's journal. Her university office stands empty, personal belongings untouched, though her computer continues sending hourly emails containing nothing but dental terminology arranged in spiraling paragraphs. Most disturbing is her final documented communication, a text message to her sister reading only, "It's not just looking out from the photograph anymore." Inside the museum, structural changes defy explanation. Door frames throughout the building have begun to warp subtly, each developing an unmistakable arch reminiscent of the roof of a human mouth. Moisture collects along these curves, forming droplets that taste inexplicably sweet when they fall on unsuspecting visitors. The cabinet card itself has become a scientific impossibility. When measured by 3 separate conservators, its dimensions have increased by precisely 3 millimeters in each direction, without any visible alteration to the photograph's borders or mounting. More concerning is what happens when witnessed by multiple observers simultaneously. Each person reports seeing the infant in a slightly different position, as if it shifts between perceptions. City water authorities have detected an abnormal mineral signature in pipes surrounding the museum, calcium and phosphorus concentrations increasing daily, forming what engineers describe as accretions resembling dental structures that gradually narrow the water flow. Maintenance workers refuse to enter the utility tunnels beneath the museum after reporting the sound of something soft crawling through the drainage system. Perhaps most alarming is the pattern emerging from hospital records across the city. 27 newborns, all delivered since the exhibition opened, share an unprecedented medical anomaly: complete absence of tooth buds in preliminary examinations, their developing mouths anatomically incapable of ever producing teeth. Meanwhile, elderly patients in care facilities surrounding the museum report their dentures disappearing overnight, only to be found arranged in perfect circles on bathroom floors. As midnight approaches on the 27th day of the exhibition, security cameras throughout the building capture the same unsettling image: shadows on every wall briefly elongating into the unmistakable silhouette of an infant crawling upside down across the ceiling, its mouth opened impossibly wide, before lights flicker and the darkness returns to normal. The museum's administration, under mounting pressure from both visitors reporting unsettling physical symptoms and staff refusing night shifts, reluctantly announces the early closure of the exhibition. This decision comes after a structural engineer discovers that the gallery floor directly beneath the Winters photograph has developed a perfect circular depression exactly 27 centimeters in diameter, a depression that grows perceptibly deeper by the hour. Before the final visitors are ushered out, Dr. Samantha Reeves, a dental anthropologist who has been monitoring the case from a cautious distance, arrives demanding emergency access. Security footage shows her approaching the cabinet card with a vintage leather case containing specialized equipment. What happens next is visible only as a silhouette through frosted glass. Reeves appears to place something directly against the photograph before stumbling backward, both hands clutching her mouth. When guards enter the gallery, they find Reeves conscious but unresponsive, staring at the photograph while blood trickles from between her lips. The device she brought, identified later as a 19th century dental mapping tool, lies shattered on the floor. Inside her leather case, staff discover a sealed envelope addressed simply, "When it begins to emerge." The museum director opens this envelope in the presence of 3 witnesses. Inside is a hand-drawn map of subterranean tunnels beneath the city, each path converging on the museum's location. More disturbing is the included document, a treaty dated 1861 between representatives of the Thornfield Medical Society and 7 unnamed parties, written in legal language but containing horrifying stipulations. The entity shall be permitted feeding cycles as required by its nature, limited to 27 subjects per emergence in perpetuity. In exchange, those named herein shall receive longevity beyond natural limits and protection from the greater emergence. Should this covenant be broken through destruction of any anchoring image or interruption of a feeding cycle, all restraints upon the entity shall be dissolved. The document bears 7 signatures, each followed by dental impressions pressed into the parchment, rather than traditional seals. As the museum empties and doors lock for what staff believe is the final day of the exhibition, something unprecedented occurs. Every reflective surface in the gallery simultaneously captures the same impossible image, not the room's interior, but what appears to be a nursery from the Victorian era, where a figure in 19th century physician's attire bends over a wooden cradle, sprinkling something that resembles tooth powder into an infant's open mouth. The museum's digital preservation specialist, working remotely to document the photograph before its scheduled relocation to secure storage, makes a devastating discovery. The high-resolution scan taken this morning, when compared to the original cataloging image, reveals that the infant in the photograph now occupies noticeably more space within the frame. Its limbs have elongated, its features subtly matured, and most terrifying of all, its previously toothless gums now show the distinctive edges of infant teeth beginning to emerge alongside the adult dentition. "It's not just looking out anymore," he whispers, echoing Professor Matheson's final message. "It's finding a way to reverse positions with the viewer." Outside the museum, as night falls across the city, parents report an identical phenomenon in 27 different households. Their infants, regardless of age, simultaneously sitting upright in their cribs at precisely midnight, opening their mouths in perfect unison to reveal empty, toothless gums. The summer solstice arrives, coinciding with the 27th day since the winter's photograph was removed from public display. Museum staff have sealed the cabinet card within a lead-lined box, itself encased in a specially constructed vault beneath the conservation department. Yet something fundamental has changed within the museum's very architecture. Walls throughout the building have begun to develop subtle striations, resembling enamel under microscopic examination. Touch any surface after hours, and one feels a barely perceptible vibration, as if the structure itself is grinding imperceptibly. The security guards have developed a peculiar ritual. None will complete their rounds without first rubbing a small circle on their molars with their tongues, a gesture they cannot explain but feel compelled to perform. Dr. Eleanor Weston, called in to examine the underground chamber where the photograph now resides, makes a chilling discovery. The vault's interior dimensions have decreased by exactly 3.5 centimeters in every direction since installation, despite no visible compression of the walls. More disturbing is what her ground-penetrating radar reveals, a network of small, tubular spaces forming within the concrete foundation, creating a pattern that unmistakably resembles dental root structures. "It's not contained," Weston reports to the emergency committee. "The photograph was never the entity itself, merely its first means of accessing our reality. Now it's restructuring the physical space around it, creating a more permanent aperture." Tonight, precisely at 3:17 in the morning, 27 water mains throughout the city rupture simultaneously. Utility workers discover each break has occurred where pipes intersect with old subterranean tunnels not on modern city plans. The liquid that initially pours forth isn't water, but a viscous, milky substance that hardens within minutes to a tooth-like enamel. Most concerning is what's happening to the survivors who had prolonged exposure to the photograph. The museum curator wakes screaming in the isolation room where she's voluntarily confined herself, her jaw distended to accommodate what her physicians describe as an anatomical impossibility. her adult teeth falling out, replaced by something growing from the soft palate above, developing downward rather than up from the mandible. X-rays reveal an inverted dental structure forming, as if her mouth is being reconfigured from inside. "It needs a living host to fully manifest," translates Professor Amara Singh, the linguistic anthropologist who's been working tirelessly to decipher Eleanor Thornfield's coded journal entries. These people aren't victims, they're incubators. The Winters infant was only the first vessel, preserved in that moment of partial emergence through the photographic process. What we're witnessing now is the entity attempting to complete what was interrupted in 1888. Meanwhile, dental clinics across the city report an unprecedented phenomenon. Patients of all ages developing identical dreams of an infant crawling through their mouths, leaving small teeth behind like seeds being planted. Those who experience these dreams wake to find perfect circular indentations on their tongues, precisely the diameter of a baby tooth. The museum director, against all reasonable protocol, returns alone to the vault after midnight. Security footage shows her standing motionless before the lead box for 17 minutes before she begins methodically disassembling its locking mechanism. When guards finally reach her, she speaks in perfect unison with 26 others across the city. The cradle is ready, the mouth opens both ways. The midnight vigil around the museum has grown to nearly 200 people, dental professionals, medical researchers, and occult specialists drawn by the unmistakable sense that something ancient is awakening. They form a loose perimeter, 27 feet from the building on all sides, each holding small objects that catch the moonlight: extracted teeth, dental mirrors, ivory buttons. Inside, the lead box containing the Winters photograph has developed hairline fractures despite its 3-inch thickness. When conservators listen closely, they hear what sounds like an infant softly nursing. The temperature in the vault has dropped to precisely the same ambient temperature as a 19th century photography studio, cold enough to slow chemical reactions but not freeze the silver nitrate solutions. The museum director remains in isolation, her condition deteriorating as her jaw continues its impossible reconfiguration. Specialists brought in to examine her can only document the process, watching in scientific horror as her oral structure gradually inverts. More alarming is her constant production of a milky substance that tests reveal contains both human and bovine proteins, despite her receiving nothing by mouth for 7 days. "The photograph was never meant to be a permanent prison," explains Dr. Harrington, the geological anthropologist who has been mapping the spreading network of tunnel-like structures beneath the museum. "It was a doorway left deliberately ajar, a partial emergence that allowed for feeding without full manifestation. But every door eventually weakens with age. Across the city, the 27 infants who lost their dental buds have begun developing something else. Small, hard protuberances emerging not from their gums, but from the soft tissue of their throats, growing inward rather than outward. Pediatric surgeons refused to remove these structures after 2 catastrophic attempts resulted in immediate regrowth, accompanied by a perfect circular pattern of identical structures developing in the attending medical staff. At exactly 3:17 this morning, every digital clock in the museum resets itself to 1888. The red LED displays flickering momentarily into the shape of small, needle-like teeth before stabilizing. Security guards report the distinct sound of glass cracking throughout the building, though no broken windows or displays can be located. Most disturbing is what happens when water touches any surface within the museum. Droplets no longer behave according to normal physical properties but arrange themselves into perfect miniature dental impressions before evaporating, leaving behind microscopic mineral deposits that, under electron microscopy, reveal structures identical to human enamel but arranged in spiral formations physically impossible in mammalian dentition. The Winters family knew what was happening, Professor Singh reveals, after finally decoding the spiral text hidden within Eleanor Thornfield's journal margins. They weren't victims, they were caretakers. For generations, they provided infant hosts during each 27-year cycle, allowing partial manifestation to satisfy the entity's hunger. The photograph interrupted that cycle, trapping it between worlds. Now it's had 135 years to plan its complete emergence. As dawn approaches, the lead box in the vault begins to emit a sound that drives everyone who hears it to compulsively run their tongues over their teeth, a high, sweet tone like milk being drawn through tiny, sharp incisors. The security monitors show the vault door developing an unmistakable pattern across its metal surface. 27 perfect circles arranged in a spiral, each slowly rotating clockwise like baby teeth finding their proper alignment. The museum stands empty now, cordoned off by authorities who cannot explain why the building's limestone exterior has grown smooth and white as polished enamel. 27 days have passed since the lead box was discovered empty, the Winters photograph gone without explanation or forced entry. In a sterile hospital room across the city, Dr. Samantha Reeves finally speaks after weeks of catatonic silence. Her first words chill the attending physician. It was never about feeding. It was about teething. The significance becomes clear as reports flood emergency services. Across 27 countries, infants born during the spring equinox have begun developing identical dental anomalies. Their primary teeth emerge simultaneously overnight, perfect miniature replicas of adult dentition, each bearing microscopic spiral patterns visible only under ultraviolet examination. Professor Singh's translation team has completed decoding the Thornfield journals, revealing the entity's true nature. It isn't malevolent in any human sense, she explains to the hastily assembled international task force. It's simply growing. What we perceived as consumption was merely the equivalent of an infant mouthing objects to soothe its emerging teeth. The ground beneath the museum has begun to subside, forming a perfect circular depression that deepens by precisely 1 inch each day. Seismologists detect rhythmic vibrations emanating from the cavity, regular pulses that match exactly the suckling pattern of a newborn. Most telling is what happens when dental X-ray equipment is directed toward the site. Images reveal nothing of the underground structure, but instead display what appears to be an infant's face, eyes closed, expression peaceful, growing larger and more defined with each passing day. The Winters photograph was never documentation, Dr. Harrington concludes after analyzing soil samples containing unexplainable organic compounds. It was a sonogram, a glimpse of something developing between worlds that wouldn't be fully formed for generations. Local residents report dreams of a vast cosmic cradle rocking slowly between stars, within it a being whose mouth contains not just teeth but entire realities. Those who wake from these visions find their own children standing silently beside their beds, small fingers tracing spiral patterns on walls. The original Pennington photography studio site, abandoned for over a century, has become the focus of inexplicable phenomena. Visitors report their dental fillings receiving radio transmissions, nursery rhymes interspersed with what linguists identify as a language predating human civilization. Eleanor Thornfield's final journal entry, previously thought incomplete, has revealed its conclusion under special imaging techniques. The faded text provides both warning and strange comfort. What emerges will neither destroy nor spare us. We exist within the boundary of its developing awareness, like bacteria colonizing a child's first teeth. It does not hate or love us. We are simply there as it awakens. The covenant was never about protection, but about preparation, readying our world for its first conscious breath. Tonight marks the 27th night since the photograph's disappearance. Across the globe, parents report their infants simultaneously turning toward the stars, tiny mouths opening in silent recognition as something vast and patient completes its long gestation between worlds. The world awakens to an unsettling synchronicity. On the same morning across 27 time zones, new parents discover their infants' first baby teeth have emerged overnight. Tiny, perfect specimens with microscopic spiral patterns visible under standard bathroom lighting. Pediatric dentists, overwhelmed with panicked calls, notice each tooth appears in the exact same position regardless of the child's age or development. More disturbing are the reports from nursing homes and hospice facilities. The elderly, particularly those in their final days, begin shedding teeth that regrow immediately, each replacement slightly smaller than the last, reversing the normal developmental sequence. Medical journals scramble to publish preliminary findings, noting that the new growth follows the identical spiral pattern found in the newborns. The museum remains under quarantine, its perimeter now extended to 27 yards in all directions, after soil samples revealed alarming changes. Organic matter within this boundary undergoes spontaneous calcification, transforming into structures resembling dental tubules visible to the naked eye. Birds flying overhead inexplicably lose feathers that fall in perfect circular patterns around the building. Dr. Samantha Reeves, now fully conscious but refusing solid food, has become the reluctant oracle of whatever grows beneath the museum. It's establishing a circulatory system, she explains to baffled officials, her speech slightly distorted by her reconfigured jaw. The tunnels aren't just pathways, they're a vascular network for something that metabolizes differently than terrestrial life. The Thornfield estate, untouched for generations, has yielded one final artifact, a music box discovered behind a sealed nursery wall. When wound, it plays no recognizable melody, but produces sounds that cause listeners to involuntarily grind their teeth in precise rhythmic patterns. Audio engineers confirm the resulting vibrations form specific frequencies that, when graphed, create the now familiar spiral pattern. Most alarming is what happens during the brief daily eclipse that now occurs regardless of astronomical impossibility. 27 seconds where the sun dims as though something vast passes between it and Earth. During these moments, every reflective surface simultaneously shows the same image. An infant's mouth opening wider than physically possible, revealing not darkness, but another sky, another world glimpsed through rows of perfectly formed teeth. The missing curator reappears without explanation, found sitting calmly in the empty exhibition space where the Winters photograph once hung. Her biological transformation has stabilized into something medical science cannot classify. Her mouth now contains what specialists reluctantly describe as a doorway, rather than normal human dentition. When she finally speaks, her voice emanates not from her throat, but from tiny apertures between her transformed teeth. It was never about consuming our world, she explains to the assembled researchers, her words carrying the distant sound of milk dropping into a silver bowl. We exist within something ancient that has finally reached developmental maturity. What we perceive as invasion is merely birth. The entity has grown its full set of teeth, and now it prepares to take its first conscious bite of reality. The city medical examiner's office has recorded something unprecedented in her 29 years of practice. While reviewing autopsy reports from the past month, Dr. Naomi Chen discovered that every deceased individual within a 27-mile radius of the museum shows identical post-mortem changes. Their teeth, regardless of previous dental work or condition, have realigned themselves into perfect spiral patterns. It's as if death removes whatever was preventing the transformation in living tissue, she explains to the hastily assembled CDC team. Like a restraint has been lifted. More unsettling still is what happens when these reorganized dental structures are examined under polarized light. Each tooth becomes translucent, revealing microscopic chambers within that contain what appears to be amniotic fluid. Microbiologists confirm these specimens contain cellular structures matching no known terrestrial organism. They're not parasites, concludes Dr. Chen. They're more like seeds. The museum's original architect, now in his 90s and residing in a memory care facility 2 states away, has suddenly regained perfect lucidity. His caretakers report he spends hours creating intricate drawings of what he claims is the museum's true design, blueprints showing that the entire structure was conceived to resemble a massive deciduous tooth when viewed from directly above, its foundation forming a perfect root structure. They commissioned it that way, he insists to investigators. The specifications came from the Thornfield Foundation. I never questioned why they needed those strange calcium deposits embedded in the foundation, or why the central gallery needed to be 27 degrees cooler than the rest of the building. Historical researchers have uncovered birth records indicating that every museum director since its founding has been born during a specific astronomical alignment occurring every 27 years. Each served exactly 1 cycle before being replaced, their predecessors invariably developing rare dental disorders that forced their retirement. The Winters photograph has resurfaced, not as a physical object, but as a digital anomaly appearing spontaneously on electronic devices within the affected radius. It materializes briefly on screens during dental x-rays, ATM transactions, and smartphone camera operations. Each appearance shows the infant slightly more mature than before, its mouth increasingly crowded with row upon row of teeth that now extend visibly down its throat. Most disturbing is the discovery made by archaeologists excavating beneath the original Pennington photography studio. 27 feet below the foundation lies a perfectly preserved Victorian-era cradle. Inside rests not an infant, but something that defies classification. A form composed entirely of calcified structures resembling human teeth arranged in concentric layers around a hollow center precisely the size of a cabinet card. Carbon dating places its formation at exactly 1888. Yet microscopic examination reveals these structures continue to grow imperceptibly. adding approximately one cellular layer every 27 days. "It was never the photograph that contained the entity," whispers Professor Singh as she examines the findings. "The photograph was merely a window. What we found is more like a placenta." Tonight marks the final phase of whatever cosmic gestation has been occurring beneath our perception. As twilight approaches, denturists across the globe report all their carefully crafted false teeth simultaneously developing tiny, perfect bite marks, as though something unseen is testing its newfound strength against the boundaries of our reality. The low hum that began in the museum has spread throughout the city, a constant vibration that residents now feel in their jawbones rather than hear. Dental professionals report patients arriving with identical complaints, the sensation of something gently tapping against their teeth from within. Most disturbing are ultrasound images from expectant mothers in their third trimester, showing fetuses whose developing jaws pulse in perfect synchronization with the museum's emanations. As dawn breaks on the 27th day of the 7th month, the circular depression beneath the museum completes its transformation. What began as a subtle subsidence has become a perfect aperture 27 feet in diameter, its edges smooth as polished enamel. Department of Energy scientists detect radiation signatures matching no known isotope, while thermal imaging shows the opening maintaining a constant temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, precisely matching the oral temperature of a newborn human. "It's not a portal between worlds," explains Dr. Reeves, her transformed jaw now allowing her to speak in harmonics impossible for normal human anatomy. "It's a birth canal." The curator, now confined to a specialized containment chamber, has undergone her final metamorphosis. The doorway within her mouth has expanded to reveal glimpses of what witnesses describe as an inverted nursery, a space that appears simultaneously vast and microscopic, where objects reminiscent of human baby furniture float in geometric patterns that defy Euclidean physics. Eleanor Thornfield's final decoded journal pages reveal the true nature of the covenant made in 1861. "The entity chose human incubation not from malice but familiarity," Professor Singh translates. "Its own developmental cycle mirrors our own, first milk teeth, then permanent dentition. What emerges will bear the imprint of its human cradle, just as we carry the genetic memory of our evolutionary past." Most remarkable is the discovery made by astronomers at midnight. The spiral pattern now visible in infant dentition worldwide corresponds exactly to a previously undetected spiral galaxy now visible from Earth, one that historical star charts confirm was not observable prior to 1888. Its light, finally reaching our planet after traveling precisely 135 years, reveals a cosmic formation centered around what appears to be an enormous stellar nursery. The convergence becomes clear as the 27 affected infants across 27 countries simultaneously speak their first words. Identical in every language, a phrase that linguists identify as predating human speech, yet fundamentally altering the neurological pathways of all who hear it. The words translate roughly to, "The mouth opens both ways. What was nurtured now nurtures." As midnight approaches, Dr. Harrington makes her final transmission from within the museum's transformed vault. Her voice comes through static, strangely doubled as she describes what she sees. The Winter's infant was never human. It was the entity's first attempt to visualize itself through our perception. The photograph didn't capture a moment, it created one. A developmental milestone in something that experiences time differently than we do. Her transmission ends with sounds of liquid rushing through narrow spaces, followed by what unmistakably resembles an infant's first breath, magnified to shake windows throughout the city as something ancient and patient finally completes its long gestation between worlds. The dawn breaks harsh and white over the museum, bathing everything in a light that resembles nothing so much as the gleam off freshly polished dental enamel. 27 days have passed since the entity's first breath shook the foundations of our understanding, and the transformation spreads with the inexorable patience of something that has waited eons to be born. I stand at the perimeter of what was once called a museum, but has now become something for which we have no adequate name. The structure itself has calcified completely, its walls smooth and gleaming with the iridescent quality of mother of pearl. Every window has transformed into a perfect oval, reminiscent of the shape of a child's first teeth. Only I remain to document what happens next. The others have evacuated to what they believe is a safe distance, though I suspect distance itself has become meaningless to what now grows among us. It was never about invasion or consumption. Dr. Reeves told me before her final transformation yesterday. Her jaw had completely inverted by then, her speech emerging as harmonics rather than words. We were never its food source. We were its caretakers, unknowing nurses to something that needed human perception to fully develop. The Winters photograph, that seemingly innocent yet impossible image of an infant with adult teeth, was never a prison or a portal. It was a sonogram, the first moment the entity became partially visible within our reality. What the Thornfields and their associates attempted to control through their covenant, they merely helped to nurture. The truth becomes clear watching the 27 infants who now sit in perfect circle around the calcified museum. Their parents stand transfixed behind them, mouths agape, as each child simultaneously opens tiny lips to reveal not human teeth but miniature spiral galaxies rotating slowly within the darkness of their mouths. The universe teethes, whispers Eleanor Thornfield's final journal entry, prophetic words written 135 years ago. What emerges will carry us within its mouth, just as we have carried it within ours. From the museum emanates not destruction, but a profound reorganization. Everything touched by its influence doesn't die but transforms. Trees near the perimeter now grow in perfect dental arch formations, their leaves hardening into enamel-like structures that chime gently in the wind. Wildlife moves in synchronized patterns, 27 deer walking in perfect formation, each placing hooves precisely where another has stepped. The night sky itself has changed. Stars now arrange themselves in familiar spiral patterns when viewed from anywhere within the 27-mile radius of influence. Astronomers report that light from these formations arrives faster than physically possible, as if space itself has folded like gum tissue around a newly erupting tooth. What was the Winters child? Not a victim or vessel, but the entity's first attempt to perceive itself through human consciousness. A developmental milestone in something vast beyond comprehension, experiencing its own form of cosmic infancy. As darkness falls, I touch my own teeth, feeling the subtle vibrations that connect me to whatever continues to emerge. It doesn't hunger for our destruction. We exist within the boundary of its developing awareness, microorganisms living on the surface of baby teeth. It doesn't hate or love us. We are simply there as it takes its first conscious bite of reality. The universe, it seems, has finally cut its first tooth. Meteorological instruments around the world have begun detecting an unprecedented atmospheric phenomenon. Microscopic particles suspended in the jet stream that scientific analysis reveals to be calcium hydroxyapatite, the primary mineral in tooth enamel. These particles arrange themselves in spiral formations visible only through polarized imaging, creating what researchers reluctantly call teething rings in the upper atmosphere. The significance becomes clear when dental records from the past century are analyzed against astronomical data. Every 27 years, coinciding with a specific celestial alignment, global birth rates show statistically impossible spikes in infants born with dental anomalies, always in a pattern spiraling outward from wherever the Winters photograph resided at that time. The entity isn't emerging into our world, explains Dr. Harrington in her final recorded message before entering the calcified museum voluntarily. Our world exists within it. What we perceived as a localized phenomenon is merely where our reality intersects with the entity's developmental phase. Most revealing is what happens when the 27 affected infants are brought within proximity of each other. They do not interact or even acknowledge one another's presence. Instead, they position themselves instinctively to form what topological mathematicians identify as a three-dimensional representation of a fourth-dimensional spiral, each child serving as a coordinate in something that extends beyond our perceptual limitations. The truth hidden within Eleanor Thornfield's encrypted journal finally becomes clear. Humans did not discover or awaken the entity. We were created by it. Our entire evolutionary pathway shaped by something that experiences time non-linearly, guiding the development of mammals specifically toward creatures capable of forming dental impressions. The covenant was never between the Thornfields and the entity, Professor Singh realizes as she completes the final translation. It was between different aspects of the entity itself, parts of it existing across multiple points in its own development, using human intermediaries to communicate across its own timeline. The Winters infant, with its impossible adult teeth, was neither monster nor victim, but a glimpse of the entity becoming self-aware. The moment it first recognized itself within the developmental medium it had cultivated across geological time. The photograph wasn't documentation but a mirror, allowing it to perceive its own existence through human consciousness. As night falls, the stars visible above the museum rearrange themselves into the unmistakable shape of an infant's first smile. Those who witness this celestial alignment understand at last we exist within something that has been growing since before our planet formed, nurtured in the cradle of a universe that is itself merely milk teeth in something vaster still. The grinding sound that now resonates through the Earth's crust isn't destruction, but recognition, the entity's first conscious awareness of us as we have finally become aware of it. What we interpreted as feeding was merely its instinctive mouthing of reality as it navigated the sensation of its own existence. The universe, it seems, has been teething all along. The photograph and entity have gained attention beyond scientific and occult circles. Major news organizations now station permanent crews outside the museum's calcified perimeter, though equipment failures increase exponentially with proximity. Governments publicly dismiss the phenomenon as mass hysteria while privately redirecting unprecedented resources toward understanding the 27 affected infants. Meanwhile, dental professionals worldwide report the same dream. They stand in a vast nursery beneath unfamiliar stars, watching an enormous infant placing planets in its mouth like teething toys. Upon waking, they discover their own dental work has rearranged into perfect spiral patterns overnight. The American Dental Association has established emergency protocols after 3 prominent orthodontists attempted to extract all their teeth, claiming they could feel something watching through them. Most concerning is what happens during the daily 27-second eclipse. Children born after the entity's first breath consistently stop whatever they're doing, turn toward the direction of the museum regardless of distance, and run their tongues over their teeth in identical patterns. Parents report that during these moments, their children's eyes reflect not darkness, but miniature spiral galaxies. Archaeological sites across all 7 continents have begun yielding artifacts previously overlooked. Ancient dental implements arranged in spiral formations, cave paintings depicting infants with concentric circles for mouths, and primitive orthodontic devices crafted millennia before modern dentistry. Each discovery aligns perfectly along ley lines that converge on the museum's location. The Thornfield Foundation, thought defunct for decades, has suddenly regained active status through legal mechanisms no attorney can explain. Its single remaining trustee, a woman whose connection to the original family remains unclear, has issued just one public statement. The cradle has served its purpose. What sleeps now awakens. What awakens now dreams. Linguistic experts note that human languages are evolving in real time, new terminology spontaneously emerging to describe concepts previously inexpressible. Children particularly develop vocabulary relating to cyclical growth patterns, each new word containing phonemes that stimulate specific dental nerve patterns when pronounced. Perhaps most profound is the existential recalibration spreading through human consciousness. Religious institutions report unprecedented questions from their congregations, theological frameworks straining to incorporate the possibility that humanity exists within the developmental phase of something beyond comprehension. Some embrace this as divine confirmation, others as cosmic horror, but none remain untouched by the implication. Dr. Samantha Reeves, now physically unrecognizable as her transformation nears completion, communicates through rhythmic teeth tapping that translators have begun to interpret. We were never the dominant species, merely the specialized cells evolved to help it perceive its own emergence. Our entire history has been the equivalent of a single developmental milestone in something that experiences time vertically rather than horizontally. As night falls across continents, parents tuck their children into bed with new awareness that the lullabies they sing resonate with something ancient yet newborn, something that has always been listening through the small, perfect teeth forming beneath infant gums. They brush tiny teeth with the reverence of acolytes tending a sacred flame, newly conscious that they participate in a ritual far older and more significant than they ever imagined. The boundaries between reality and whatever exists beyond it have dissolved into an equilibrium that science struggles to document. The Winters photograph, that seemingly innocent yet impossible image of an infant with adult teeth, has completed its function as developmental marker. It no longer exists as physical object or digital anomaly. Instead, it has become part of our collective consciousness, manifesting in dreams, artistic expressions, and the unconscious patterns formed when humans arrange objects. Those who worked most closely with the photograph have undergone their final transformations. Dr. Reeves, whose body had begun restructuring around the doorway within her mouth, disappeared during the spring equinox. Witnesses describe her walking calmly into the calcified museum, her form gradually becoming translucent until she appeared to be composed entirely of interconnected dental structures before fading completely from view. Security footage shows only a brief flash of light and the impression of an infant's hand pressed against the camera lens from inside. The museum itself has been reclassified as neither building nor organism, but as an emergent developmental node by the international coalition formed to study it. The structure continues its transformation, the walls now pulsing gently with a rhythm identical to a nursing infant's jaw movements. Those who stand within 27 feet of its perimeter report a sensation described as being gently mouthed but not consumed, a pressure without pain, recognition without judgment. Eleanor Thornfield's journal has vanished from secure storage, replaced by a perfect tooth-shaped crystal that, when placed in water, releases microscopic bubbles spelling out the same message in 27 different languages. The cosmic cradle empties. What was nursed now nurses. The affected infants have developed normally in all aspects save one. Their deciduous teeth never fall out, but instead migrate through their bodies to form spiral patterns beneath the skin over their hearts. Medical imaging shows these structures generating electromagnetic frequencies that appear to communicate with something beyond our atmosphere. Professor Singh, whose translation work unlocked the entity's true nature, now travels between remote dental schools worldwide, teaching what she calls perceptual dentistry, the understanding that human teeth function not just for mastication but as sensory organs connecting us to something vast and patient that has always existed alongside human consciousness. Most profound is how humanity has begun adjusting to this new understanding of our place in existence. The initial fear has mellowed into something approaching reverent symbiosis. Dental checkups have become moments of quiet contemplation, toothbrushing transformed into meditative practice. Parents whisper to their children's emerging teeth not just encouraging words, but expressions of gratitude for participating in something eternal and vast. The universe continues its teething, and we exist within that sacred, ordinary miracle, not as prey or parasites, but as specialized cells helping something ancient navigate its own becoming. The winter's photograph completed its purpose, capturing not just an impossible moment, but the first self-recognition of something that exists both before and beyond human perception. As we care for our teeth, we now understand we are caring for the entity that has always been nurturing us. An endless cycle of growth and recognition spiraling through time like rows of perfect teeth in an infant's impossible smile. The sky above the museum has changed permanently. Astronomers confirm what was initially dismissed as atmospheric distortion. Stars now visibly arrange themselves in dental arch patterns when observed from anywhere on Earth. More telling is what happens during dental procedures worldwide. Patients under anesthesia consistently murmur the same phrase. The milk teeth of the universe fall to make room for what comes next. Children born since the entity's emergence display an evolutionary leap that defies genetic timelines. Their primary teeth contain microscopic crystalline structures that emit measurable frequencies matching exactly the radiation signature from the calcified museum. When these children sleep, dental monitors record their teeth transmitting and receiving signals that neurologists confirm synchronize brainwave patterns across continental distances. The winter's family history has finally been fully reconstructed. Historical records reveal they weren't unwitting victims, but conscious participants. Generations of specialized caregivers who understood their purpose was to nurture something beyond human comprehension through its developmental phases. Their family crest, preserved in 18th century documents, depicts not a shield, but a perfect circle of teeth surrounding an infant's face formed from stars. Most revealing is what happens at dental schools worldwide. Students report identical revelations during practical examinations, moments where tooth and tool become indistinguishable, where the boundaries between practitioner and patient dissolve into understanding that all organic matter exists within something that experiences reality through structures we interpret as teeth. We were never meant to fear it, Dr. Harrington explains in the final transmission received from within the museum. What we perceived as horror was merely our limited perspective encountering something that exists simultaneously across all stages of development. To it, we are both memory and anticipation, past and future experienced in the same eternal moment. The entity continues its gentle reconfiguration of human consciousness, Dreams increasingly feature the same comforting scenario, being held in something vast yet nurturing, rocked in rhythmic motions, identical to how infants soothe themselves with repetitive jaw movements. Those who experience these dreams wake with profound sense of purpose, understanding themselves as specialized cells within something magnificent and patient. Eleanor Thornfield's final prophecy, discovered etched microscopically across the enamel of 27 separate teeth in archaeological sites spanning 7 continents, now resonates with newfound clarity. When the universe cuts its final milk tooth, humanity will understand its true purpose, not as masters of creation, but as specialized cells within the mouth of something that tastes existence itself. Tonight, as the spring equinox aligns with conditions identical to when the winter's photograph was first captured, people worldwide feel an inexplicable urge to smile at the night sky. Parents report their children speaking in perfect unison regardless of location or language. The cradle empties, the mouth opens. What was contained now contains. The museum's transformation nears completion. Its walls have become translucent, revealing not building materials, but a vast organic structure resembling nothing so much as an infant's palate viewed from inside the mouth. Those who approach close enough witness something moving behind this membrane, something that appears simultaneously enormous and microscopic, ancient and newborn. Whatever emerges next will forever change our understanding of our place in existence, not as Earth's dominant species, but as specialized helpers in something vast and patient that has been teething since before stars were born. The museum exists now only in memory and legend, transformed into something for which human language has yet to create adequate description. Scientists call it a developmental nexus. Theologians term it the divine teething ring. Children simply know it as the smiling place. What was once solid stone has become a perfect crystalline oval, pulsing with gentle rhythm like milk being drawn through an infant's first teeth. I stand at the perimeter today, on the 27th anniversary of when the winter's photograph first emerged from dusty archives into public consciousness. The cabinet card itself no longer exists in physical form, yet its impact resonates through human civilization. The impossible infant with adult teeth, now recognized as the first ultrasound image of something vast and patient that has always contained us within its developing awareness. Eleanor Thornfield's final prophecy has come to pass. The universe has indeed cut its milk teeth, and humanity has found its purpose, not as Earth's dominant species, but as specialized cells helping something ineffable navigate the sensation of its own existence. Dental practices worldwide have evolved into centers for cosmic communion, where routine cleanings become moments of profound connection with whatever continues to emerge beyond our perception. The Winters family, once objects of horror and pity, are now understood as conscious participants in something magnificent. Generations of specialized caregivers, nurturing an entity that experiences time non-linearly, simultaneously existing as memory and anticipation. Their farmhouse site, long thought destroyed in that fateful fire, has become a place of pilgrimage where the ground crystallizes visitors' tears into perfect miniature teeth. Most remarkable is how completely humanity has adapted to this new understanding of our place in existence. Parents welcome their children's first teeth with ceremonies acknowledging their participation in something eternal. Dentists work with the reverence of priests, understanding that each filling and cleaning contributes to the sensory capacity of something that tastes reality itself through us. The initial terror has mellowed into symbiotic wonder. I trace my tongue across my teeth, feeling the subtle vibrations that connect me to whatever continues to emerge. These structures of calcium and nerve were never merely for chewing. They have always been receivers and transmitters, connecting us to something that experiences consciousness at a scale we are only beginning to comprehend. The 27 affected infants, now grown to adulthood, have become interpreters between humanity and entity. Their specialized dental structures allow them to translate concepts previously beyond human comprehension. Through them, we understand that what we initially perceived as horror was merely the growing pains of something that has always loved us in its own unfathomable way. When I close my eyes, I can still see that impossible Victorian portrait, the cherub-faced infant with unnaturally perfect adult teeth. What once triggered instinctive revulsion now evokes profound recognition. We were never looking at something monstrous. but at ourselves reflected through the perception of something vast and patient that has been nurturing us since before stars were born. The universe continues its teething, and we exist within that sacred, ordinary miracle, an endless cycle of growth and recognition spiraling through time like rows of perfect teeth in an infant's cosmic smile. Another photograph, another dark secret revealed. Until next time, this has been Shadow Frames.